Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you are new here, feel free to subscribe and check out my previous videos about literally random things because Gigi Passions has passions for many things. Anyways, let's get started. I'm so excited about today's episode because this is going to be part of my Cup of Mental podcast, and we're going to be talking about something that is so near and dear to my heart, and I felt like it was time to be vulnerable with you all because we are talking about vulnerability. And stay till the end because I will be talking about a giveaway that I want to do because we are on the road to 100 subscribers, and I really want to give back to everybody who is supporting me through this journey. So yeah, stay tuned for that. All right, vulnerability. What's the first thing you think of when you hear vulnerability? You're like, ew, scary, I don't want it, right? Because vulnerability means I'm laying my cards out to somebody who could hurt me. And you are worried about being your whole self because you don't know if you're going to be accepted that way. I would say that's my definition of vulnerability, as well as being open, right? Like being very open and expressing your emotions. Now, when I looked it up on Google under Oxford Languages, it means the quality or state of being exposed to the possibility of being attacked or harmed, either physically or emotionally. So let's stop right there. Doesn't that sound so scary? The possibility of being attacked or harmed, right? Now, why do we have this preconceived notion for vulnerability? Why do we feel that fear of being attacked or harmed? It is because of the past. So why are we scared, right? Why are we even scared of vulnerability? And when you think about a therapy session or something you see online, what do they start with? It's your childhood. And honestly, it's so true. So think back to when you were young, right? You were 6 years old and you were running around and you were so happy and childlike and carefree. And maybe you fell. You started crying really, really bad because it hurt really bad, right? To you, it hurt so bad, but maybe it was just a little bump. And your first response is to cry. Now, depending what environment you lived in, of course, I lived in the environment of the suck it up, get up, you're fine, that kind of motion, right? But let's say this continuously happens, but you're not falling down. Maybe something at school made you sad, and maybe you saw something that made you sad, but it makes you cry. And in that sometimes more strict environment, they get upset with you and they say, suck it up. You don't need to be crying over that. Let me give you a reason to cry. Things like that, right? So if those are relatable, that could be one reason why you were scared. But the first thing you learn to do is cry, to express, right? And obviously when you're a baby, you don't understand when someone's getting mad and they're like, stop crying, right? So they tend to you. But when you get a little bit older and you become a toddler and you start having these different emotions, sometimes they don't tend to us and instead they tell us to suck it up. Now, of course, to some extent, I agree in some ways because the world is really tough out there. Not everyone's going to like you, and you need to understand that type of form of rejection. And you have to build that strong mind that will get you through those different scenarios. However, I think sometimes in a very strict environment, they can lose a little bit of focus as far as validating your emotions. So then you start to learn, when I cry, my family gets upset and they get mad at me and they tell me to suck it up. So you kind of start to learn to build that wall up for your vulnerability because you say, you know what, I'm not going to share these emotions anymore. I'm going to hide them to myself. That way nobody gets upset with me, which can be very sad when you don't understand it until you're older, and then you're like, why am I not sharing these things, right? Why do I feel this way? Why do they make me feel this way? That is one reason you could be scared of vulnerability. Another reason why you might be scared of vulnerability is going to be relationships. I know nobody wants to hear it. It's really from the beginning of your journey with relationships. I can use my first relationship as an example without going into detail. But when you first have that love, it's naive, it's ignorant, it's unapologetic, and it's unconditional, and you feel like you want to give all of yourself to this person because why? You've never been hurt in a romantic relationship. So to you, you see no risk because you don't know what comes on the other end of a heartbreak, which is very sad to say, but You really have to experience it to learn. In my first relationship, I would have little feelings of jealousy. And in the beginning, I didn't really know what it was. I hadn't ever been in a relationship where I would feel jealous. So I asked the person, is this normal to be jealous? Is this like bad that I'm feeling jealous? And they said, no, it's pretty normal. Like, you're human. We're all human. We all get these little feelings. But I didn't know that that relationship wasn't going to serve me and it wasn't for me and that person was not for me. So things started happening in the relationship on their end where there was definitely a reason for me to question, another person, like a third party that was coming into the relationship. And at that time, I was kind of scared because I was like, you know what, if I bring this up, I'm going to lose this person because what if they get upset? But I had never been hurt before. So I thought, why not? Like, let me be honest. I have nothing to lose. I bring it up. It's a conversation. And then after that, that person started getting annoyed when I would bring it up because the behavior was consistent. And that's when I started to learn, okay, like, no matter how much I love this person, I wanted to be honest, but I noticed the more I bring it up, they're getting very upset with me because I'm bringing up my emotions. And obviously, I started to learn to mask it. I started to learn to check out of the relationship because I didn't feel I was being my authentic self and expressing myself. Eventually I left, but I kind of carried that baggage with me, that loss of vulnerability, because now I'm thinking, what if I hadn't brought it up in the very beginning? What if I just didn't say anything? Maybe we would be this happy couple who doesn't have issues and there's no jealousy because I never brought it up. Like, I should have never brought it up. And then you go into another relationship, you still don't know how to be vulnerable. So you start off the relationship like that and you don't share things. The person sees that you can be closed off at times. It's honestly not a very healthy relationship. So this could be another place, like I said, where you kind of grow that brick wall of shutting down, honestly, is what it is. That's another place where you can get scared to be vulnerable. Now let's talk about the benefits of being vulnerable, because as I learned to be vulnerable, it is honestly so beautiful. It's like you clear your mind without apology. You can truly be yourself. So I think the importance of it is that you get to grow deeper connections with people, deeper than surface level, not just, hey, I know what he likes, I know what she likes. You truly get to the nitty gritty of another person, and you get to express yourself as you are to another person, which is great, right? Who doesn't want to be their complete selves with a partner or a really good friend? And when these friendships you see are actually worth building upon, you want to be vulnerable. Because of course, I'm not saying meet a new person every day and share your whole life with them. Like, obviously, you don't want to give all your cards out all the time. Like, you want to make sure this person is worth building a friendship or relationship with. Think about your best friend, right? Can you be your whole self with them? Can you be goofy? Can you cry? Have they seen you at your best and your worst? Because I know for 100% fact, I can say that with my best friend, I can be so vulnerable. I don't think I ever have to hide a thought from her, which is great because sometimes I can get in my thoughts, and being able to share them is so much more relieving, especially knowing that she's not going to judge me and that she will be there for me. So I think that's like a great benefit if you compare your best friendship, and when you grow relationships, this is definitely a way that you can get closer to them, is just by being vulnerable. And by doing this, it obviously brings you more joy in life, because if you are content right now and maybe you're used to hiding your feelings, once you start to express them, it feels so good. You feel a different type of joy. You feel release. You feel like you aren't hiding anymore, that you are not masking yourself. And I've got to say, it's a pretty darn good feeling. So definitely the biggest benefit of being vulnerable is that it just brings more joy overall to your life. Now, you're over here talking about all this vulnerability, Gina, and how do I do it? How do I start? Well, I'm going to tell you some steps on how to practice vulnerability. And Let me start by saying that I am on this journey with you because I only recently found out that I have trouble being vulnerable, which I thought was very weird hearing from my therapist since I'm very, very vulnerable with her. The way we discovered this is that I am in a new relationship and I am having a lot of trouble being vulnerable and expressing myself because I'm scared to scare this person away is really what it is. When I would explain it to my therapist, she's like, "You're having trouble being vulnerable." And I'm like, "How? Like, how? I feel like I'm the most vulnerable person." And she says, "Your personality, being expressive and excited and happy and, all these different emotions, that's not necessarily being vulnerable. Being vulnerable is having those real deep conversations and kind of exposing yourself." And I really wasn't exposing myself because I was just scared that if I cried in front of him or showed any type of weird emotion that he would get upset, like the things that happened in the past. And let me also start by saying no one is ever completely healed jumping into a relationship. Everybody has scars, and I can't work on being in a relationship unless I'm in a relationship. So I can do all the self-love and self-care practices that I can without being in a relationship, but you don't really learn to rewire those practices and thoughts until you run into that scenario. Basically, what happened is, started a relationship and there were thoughts that were coming on my mind. Not that he was doing anything wrong, he really wasn't at all. And I just started having assumption of what happened in the past. And instead of bringing it up, like, hey, this is what happened to me in the past, and these are the thoughts I'm having. I feel like I needed a little bit of validation, which is not always the healthiest. Like, you don't always need to have validation from another person. You should have validation within yourself. But as I'm learning and healing, right, I'm having these negative thoughts and starting to grow resentment because in my head, I'm like, I can't even share this with you. I can't even tell you what I'm thinking. I can't even tell you what's going on in my mind. I can't even tell you these questions I have. And this nice, beautiful man is just sitting in front of me, not even understanding what's going on in my head. And I'm having this whole conversation with myself because I'm scared to show the real me. The first time I brought up like a deeper conversation, I got scared and I shut down and I was like, forget it. I don't want to talk about it. Nothing's wrong. And I know you said this. If you struggle with vulnerability, you've definitely said this. Nothing's wrong. It's fine. Just forget it. Because I've done it for the longest time. And it's called shutting down. And you don't want to talk about it. I did this with him, and he is sent from heaven. He is so sweet, and he really actually cares. He cares about the thoughts that go through my head. He cares about having the open conversation. He doesn't want me to feel alone in my head. And he does that by asking me, what's going on in my mind. And he asked me to communicate with him, which I think is beautiful because I've never really had that. So when I shared that conversation with him, I started to cry and he just comforted me. And I was like, what? This is actually not as hard as it usually is, because usually people get upset when I express myself. That was the first experience. And as time was going on, I noticed that when I had a weird thought, instead of bringing it up, I would do the same thing. But he knew that when my demeanor changed or my persona changed, if I got really quiet or I stopped talking, I stopped laughing, like my voice got monotone, he obviously knows me already. And so he was like, what's wrong, And I'd be like, nothing's wrong, it's fine. After I realized in therapy that I am having trouble, I actually brought it up with him. And this is one thing you can do to practice vulnerability is you practice sharing this openness and these feelings with a trusted person. Now, he is my trusted person that I am working through this with because obviously I care about him a lot. And if I want this to last, like I need to be open and vulnerable. But I did tell him from day one that I was in therapy, so he knows what he got into. But I did tell him, hey, I'm working on being vulnerable. So that is something that, I would like your help on, or just for you to be aware that I might have moments where I might need to just process a thought and, just come and cuddle me because that is what I like. I do like to be cuddled. So come cuddle me and I will process it. And then I will tell you in a more clear and concise way instead of me acting off of my feelings. So that's how we've been working on it, is just really me practicing. Okay, let me feel the thought. Let me process it. And then let me talk about it with you. Sometimes it comes out kind of silly because I'm like, why was I thinking so much about that? But I think the practice of, okay, give me a moment, let me think about it, and then we can talk about it has helped a lot. But also him just understanding that communication is key. And actually, like, I've been getting a lot better. And I notice I feel so much more free because not having all those thoughts in my head or questions and being able to present them to him and him be so calm and understanding is like a blessing, a huge blessing. But don't get me wrong, it's definitely a scary journey. And sometimes you will have those moments where you're still like, I don't want to talk about it, because I literally had one like last week or something. But he's so patient. And so we worked through it, and I was like, you know what? I didn't mean that. I didn't mean I don't want to talk about it. I was just shutting down. So here's really what I wanted to talk about. And he always comes back with the most sweetest, understanding responses. So that's how I know this is going very well, because you will find that person who is understanding. And it doesn't have to be relationship wise either. It can be friendship, obviously. And you can say, hey, like, this is what I'm going through. And if that person doesn't accept you for who you are, then screw them. Sorry, but they're just not your people. And that's really what life is about, is finding your people, finding your gang to be surrounded with, and just live a joyous life. Okay, something else that helped me practice vulnerability is talking to yourself in a certain way by saying, you know what? If this person cares for me, they're not going to judge me. If this person cares for me, they're going to stay. If this person is my person, or if this person is meant to be my friend, they will accept me as I am. I think it was kind of hard in the beginning to think of that, because like the person I'm dating, I care for so much. And at one point, I had to stop worrying about losing them. And I had to start worrying about, okay, if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. Rejection is redirection, baby. And that's what I've been telling myself for literally everything: relationships, jobs, life decisions. So just practicing that self-talk. Okay, the last tip to practice vulnerability would be to give up perfection. Now, I kind of touched on this earlier when I said nobody's ever completely healed. Kind of going back to that, you are never going to be perfect, and that is okay, because that is honestly what makes us all so unique. We all have flaws, and it's really just about finding those people who are going to accept your flaws, all in all. You are going to learn from other people, and you are going to heal with other people. You are going to help others heal with your experiences. It's all about different perspectives, and never expect to be the perfect version of yourself, because life is really about enjoying the process to get there, not I'm going to be perfect tomorrow. Because then what? Then what? If you're perfect tomorrow, like, what else are you going to do for the rest of your life? Like, you're not going to have any growth. And I think that's what's important, is having that growth mindset of, you know what, I can work on this. And vulnerability is right there on the top, because I know we are all scared to lay out our cards because we don't want to feel exposed. Honestly, one day I plan to make another episode saying, I conquered it. I can be completely vulnerable. But I think there's always room for improvement. But until then, I'm really glad I got to share my journey and recent experience with vulnerability to see if it's hopefully relatable to anybody out there. And maybe you learned something today, and I would be very happy if you did, because I poured my heart out here and I really just want to help people. So if this related to you in any way, please, you can DM me, you can share your story. I would love to hear what you are struggling with or maybe need help with. Obviously, for legal purposes, I am not a doctor. I am not a psychiatrist. I am not a therapist. However, I've been going to therapy for a long time, and I'm a normal human. So I have feelings and I have experiences, and I think I can offer a very good chunk of support and advice because of what I've been through. And I also love to hear advice from other people. So I'm always also welcoming people to my DMs on Cup of Mental. Maybe you can give me some advice. Maybe you've already overcome a vulnerability and this is what worked for you. Now we have gotten to the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching the entire time. Or if you fast forward it, come on. I gave really good advice. So if you didn't watch the whole video, please just go back and you can listen to it like when you're in your car or when you're walking down the road or whatever. Like, it doesn't take that long. Like, you can just leave it on and cook. But anyways, I am very excited because I'm going to be doing my first giveaway on this YouTube channel, and this is to get us to the road to 100 subscribers. Right now, I have under 80, so I'm looking to get to the 100. Once I get to the 100, I'm going to be choosing a random person, a random subscriber. Now, the rules to get into this giveaway is you obviously have to subscribe to my YouTube channel and also write a positive comment on the bottom. So, I mean, it could be anything. It could be an I am affirmation. It could be a positive quote that you really live by. I would love to see a lot of positivity in the comment section. So just subscribe, write a positive comment, and I will be choosing the winner at random on April 17th of 2023. But until then, feel free to look back at any of my previous videos and also follow me on Apple Podcast and Spotify Music for Cup of Mental Podcast. I would really appreciate the support. Thank you so much for watching today. And until next time, I hope you have a beautiful day and do something that you love. Oh my gosh. So the good thing is that this mic is super good. The bad thing is that it's so good, it picks up literally everything that's happening on the outside. Like, I had to take a clock out of the room so it wasn't like